It is finally here. SEC football week 1. Anybody on upset alert? What can we expect? Locked on SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what is happening, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along on today's show. We're going to run through all the week 1 matchups in the SEC. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to Everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And this episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Zero sugar and a convenient portable size. It is the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. Go to 5hourenergy.com. Use our promo code LOCKEDONCFB and get 20% off your order. That offer only valid until September 30th on one order. Cannot be used with any other promos. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. Our buddy Chris Marler joining us for a crossover edition. He is the host of Locked On Gamecocks, and you know him, you love him. He's been joining us every week throughout the college football season the last few years. And Marler, welcome in, man. It feels like we were crawling through the desert looking for that taste of drop of water. We got it last week with Florida State and Georgia Tech, but man, it feels good to have college football, specifically SEC football, back.
Yeah, it's like we got a full bottle of water. I hate to use that weird analogy, I guess, the way to piggyback on it, because you made a good one. But anyway, yeah, like it was like, I think we all expected to have one good game, and we had 3 good games. And it was a lot of fun. But yeah, this is, in my opinion, it's one of the more underrated weekends or sports weekends of the entire year, because you get 5 straight days of football, and 4 of it is really, really good.
I want to change things up a little bit this year in how we kind of do the games. We're going to start with the biggest games first, because I think that's what most people are coming here for to get hyped up on. And let's start with the first game on Saturday. It is 11 a.m. Central, 12 Eastern on ABC. Nationally televised audiences. Number 14 Clemson against number 1 Georgia. Of course, the Bulldogs have vengeance on their mind. They get lose to Alabama in a close game in the SEC title game, get left out of the playoff. They bludgeon Florida State in the bowl game, and here they are sitting at about a 2-touchdown favorite over Clemson. I think the big question here, Marler, is we kind of know what Georgia is. Like, we know Carson Beck's back. We know Mike Bobo's back. We know the defense is going to be solid. I think the big question for this one is, what is Clemson? Like, what is Clemson?
Yeah. No, it's a good question. I think because what they've been is a shell of themselves over the past couple of years. It's almost like this Russian stacking doll, and the more you unstack it, it's like it's just less and less of what its former self was. Clemson's going to be good on defense, and I think the biggest thing to get excited about if you're a Clemson fan is like the 2 freshman receivers you have should be the best pass catchers you have on the entire team, and it's been a minute. You can make the case it's been since 2018, 2019 when they've had an elite receiver. So if they have that, that's how you start getting back to looking more like Clemson, because Cade Klubnik has come in as a high 4-star, 5-star, whatever he was. He's a very highly ranked recruit. He's been better than DJU, I guess, but at the same time, it's not like he's been a great quarterback. So I think it'll be interesting to see what they are on offense. It was also just one of those things where it's Dabo got to have this fortune of having the same exact staff in place for seemingly almost a decade. That's what it felt like, right? And now that he's having to actually go through changes as much as he doesn't want to, it's obviously not been as dominant of as a run they've had. I think Georgia runs away with this, man. And I know they have some concerns at running back. Obviously, you lose Robert Thomas in the receiver, and you got to replace Brock Bowers. But they're going to go into a building that has been what I've referred to as a house of horrors for them in the past, but that's against one team. So they're going to go into a building where they were basically 3 points away from three-peating in a national championship a year ago. And I think that they're going to come out and do the opposite of what Florida State did, which is have a chip on their shoulder, take it to Clemson early, and it won't be as bad as that Oregon game from a couple of years ago, but it's going to be bad.
Yeah, it's some questions on whether we're going to see new running back Trevor Etienne coming over from Florida. He had a DUI arrest, and they've kind of hinted he may serve a suspension here. Yeah. So the real question there, but the big focus is really Carson Beck, right? I mean, he is the Heisman Trophy contender on this team. And you talked about it. Everybody's like, well, they lose Brock Bowers, they lose Lad McConkey, they lose Robert Thomas. Yeah, but they bring back Dylan Bell, Arian Smith, Dominic Lovett. They add Colby Young from Miami. And, oh, by the way, one of the more underrated moves, adding London Humphreys, who was a dynamic freshman at Vanderbilt. Like, come on. let's be honest, Georgia's got talent
Everywhere. And I tell you what, get to know the name Oscar Delp early, because that's one thing we've seen in Munkin's offense, we've seen in Bobo's offense. And here's the thing, like Brock Bowers led that team in receiving, I think, for 3 straight years, statistically. And he was obviously like the catalyst on that offense, and it's a massive mismatch. And I don't expect Oscar Delp to be that. But if there's one thing that Georgia has had as an identity on offense the past couple of years, and it's something they've done better than every other team in the country, and that's spread the wealth on offense. And you don't have just one guy getting all the carries. You don't have one guy getting all the targets. Even though Bowers was like the leading guy there in the pass catchers, like they are going to have enough talent there. I think the kid from Miami is going to be a stud. And you have the benefit of having what might be the best quarterback in the country and possibly the highest drafted quarterback in the NFL draft next year. So talent everywhere. You know, the defense is going to be good. Here's the other thing too. How many points do they have to get to beat Clemson? Like 21, 24 tops? Like, and that's not even a slight at Clemson. It's just, you don't see Kirby Smart defenses give up a ton of points ever.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the hallmark, is he's preaching to the team like, we ain't giving up 20 points, you know. So and for the longest it was like, yeah, they were giving up like 13 or 10, like it was something insane like every week. So we're both taking Georgia and to cover the number here.
For sure. I think it's going to get ugly.
Yeah, 13.5 currently over at FanDuel. Another of the big ones, and this, you know, you could almost call this the marquee game, because this is where College Game Day is headed, and it is to College Station, where it is a big one over at Kyle Field. As number 7 Notre Dame will take on number 20 Texas A&M. It'll be on ABC. It's the night game, 6:30 on ABC. And, you know, Marler is kind of interesting. Earlier this week, we found out Notre Dame, their battles on offensive line, they're going to start a couple freshmen along with a couple of sophomores. And it just got me thinking, looking at A&M's D-line, Shamar Stewart, big Nick Scorton, they bring in from Purdue. Like, these some big bad dogs. And oh, by the way, Mike Elko's specialty is defense. So I just wonder, man, that crowd is loud and rocking. Like, the pressure is going to be on Riley Leonard, the quarterback of Notre Dame.
Yeah, there's so many good storylines here. I think that with Leonard going up against the old coach, you know, like one thing people aren't really talking enough about in this matchup, I think, especially around the SEC, is the OC that Notre Dame went out and got is the guy that just led LSU to the highest ranked scoring offense and total yards and all that kind of stuff, most productive offense in the entire country, and, you know, led Jaden Daniels to a Heisman. Like, that's who's going to be calling the plays for Notre Dame this year. You know, they're going to be defensively sound, because that's what Marcus Freeman does. They've got a lot of talent. I think they're a shoe-in to make the playoff, but Vegas always knows something. And the fact that they're an underdog going into this game, when and here's the thing too, man, they were a 1-point underdog when the line opened, I think back in like June or July, and it's gone up to 2.5. So, and you know just as well as I do that the public money is going to be coming in on Notre Dame, especially from around the country and the casual fan. So that is an interesting thing. Great picture of Mike Elko. But Mike Elko coming in here is in a situation where he's got a ton of talent still in that room. Like, I know they lost like 30 plus dudes, the portal, and Jimbo Fisher underachieved, but like you mentioned, the D-line, they've also got, I think Moose Muhammad might be one of the breakout players of this entire conference this year at receiver. They are going to be sound. And the thing with Elko is that he's able to get things done and get things done quickly. Like when he was at Duke, they went 9 wins his first year. That's a program that had 10 wins total in the 3 seasons combined before that. So I like Notre Dame and to come in and be a really good team this year. I think they're going to lose on Saturday night. I think it just has all the makings of it being a really, really, huge, awesome first game. And I tell you what, if Notre Dame was favored by 2.5, I would probably be hammering Notre Dame. But the fact that Vegas has told us repeatedly, like, hey, you know, like they don't build these massive cathedrals out here in the middle of the desert out of nothing, like, and the line's going up in favor of A&M, got to take the Aggies.
Yeah, and by the way, Noah Thomas, another guy that you know everybody thinks very highly of. I've also been told watch out for the tight ends. Donovan Green is back after getting hurt all last year. They bring in Trey Watson through the portal, and then people made such a big deal out of losing Reuben Owens, and I like Reuben Owens a lot. He was a 5-star running back and all that, but like Levy and Moss and Amari Daniels were their 2 leading rushers a year ago, and they're still healthy. So I think the run game is going to be fine there for A&M. I think the flip side about Marcus Freeman, like, look, most head coaches, like I thought he would have been better starting off at like a Cincinnati for a couple years as a head coach, and then you get the Notre Dame job. He got the Notre Dame job so quick because Brian Kelly left. It was like, I don't know if he's cut out to be a big-time head coach this quickly. He may. He had a nice year last year, but 2 years ago they lost to Marshall when he first started there. So we'll see on that one. But certainly I think that this is a big one. I'm with you. I think A&M is just going to be the more physical team. Ole Miss gets all the credit for having the number one portal class. A&M was right there behind him. In fact, at one point, A&M jumped them in the rankings and had the number one portal class ahead of Ole Miss before they fell back. But a lot of new talent in College Station.
Yeah, agreed. And again, I think it's also the talent they still have in place. Because here's the thing, too. Jimbo Fisher definitely underachieved, but that is, when you talk about what they brought in that one class a couple of years ago, like, it was hands down the most talented defensive line class in the history of recruiting. And, like, the remnants of that class and the other ones they've had since then are still there. So it'll be interesting, man. It should be a really good game. It's going to cap off a really good day of football.
All right. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, we'll hit on some of the other big games happening around the conference coming up next. Well, first, I want to remind you guys, today's episode is brought to you by Factor Meals. You want to fuel up? Factor's no prep, no mess meals meet your wellness goals thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. Make today the day you kickstart a new healthy routine. What are you waiting for? With 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week, you'll always have new flavors to explore. Go crush your wellness goals this May with dietitian-approved meals and ingredients that you can trust. Enjoy effortless support for your lifestyle. Choose from 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize protein intake, avoid meat, or simply eat well balanced. Head to factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50. Use our promo code that's LockedOnCollege50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50. Get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. And this episode also presented to you by our friends over at eBay Motors. Look, passion, drive, and patience. It is the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. And eBay Motors has got everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. Over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You're always going to find exactly what you're looking for. And with that eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it is easy to make your car that MVP. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. It is ebaymotors.com. And we dive back into it with our buddy Chris Marler of Locked On Gamecocks as we do a crossover here on Locked On SEC. And hey, quick reminder to check out Marler's podcast, Locked On Gamecocks. You can also check out Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin talking all the big stories in the world of college football. All right, Marler, as we get into
but mainly mine, to be very clear.
As we get into previewing our other big games in the conference, how about in Las Vegas? It is number 23 USC against number 13 LSU. And, man, I don't know why LSU is just a glutton for punishment when it comes to these preseason neutral field openers against good teams. They are 0-2 in the Brian Kelly era in these games, losing to Florida State each of the last 2 years. And now they get Lincoln Riley and USC. And two teams that kind of mirror each other a lot, where they both lose Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks. Both teams' defenses were abysmal last year. Both teams fired their defensive coordinators. Both teams started the backup quarterback who's waited in the wings in the bowl game, Miller Moss at USC and Garrett Nussmeier at LSU. Both guys performed very well in the bowl game.
Very well.
So a lot of parallels here, and I kind of don't know what to think. Like, everybody I've talked to said, oh, this might be a track meet. It might be 41-38 final, but I don't know, man. It's hard to get a read on this one.
It's wishful. I think it's kind of wishful thinking, or just maybe an assumption based off of last year's teams that people would think that about the track meet, especially because here's the thing. You probably noticed this just as well as anybody, and everyone else did too. The first games of the year, outside of what happened in New Mexico, like that Georgia Tech and Florida State game, I think that's how a lot of these games in college football are going to play out this year with the new clock rules, the new comms rules, and the helmet and everything like that. Like, both those teams only had 7 total possessions. Like, that is nowhere near enough. And like, sure, these two teams might go a little bit more fast paced and they might put up like a little more chunk plays. And I fully expect both teams to throw the ball a little bit more. But I'm with you, man. It's two very, very similar teams that are squaring off each other. Just like it's like looking into a mirror, I think, in some cases. But the one place that it's not is the head coach and also the defensive coaches and assistant coaches you have in place. Now, LSU's in a situation where they got to replace both coordinators, one by choice, one really not by choice, I think. And like the talent is always going to be there. I think they should be a lot better on defense, but there are still some question marks. I just think that the one storyline with LSU that we haven't talked about nearly enough this offseason is Brian Kelly heard all the criticism loud and clear. And I think more than that, he knew internally, like, we had a Heisman Trophy winner and 2 first-round draft picks at receiver, and we went 9-3, like, because the defense was so bad. He goes out and completely overhauls the defense and that coaching staff, and not only goes out and gets 5 new guys, gets like arguably the best available DC, gets Bo Davis, who's the best defensive line coach in the country, and also Corey Raymond, to coach up the DBs. I think LSU is going to win this game. I do think it's going to be closer than people think, and one of the reasons why is because of Vegas and the number coming down from 6 to 4.5, which seems very odd, like given the fact that USC is coming off a 7-5 season. But here's the thing, man: if there's one thing Lincoln Riley is actually good at, it's being able to replace Heisman winning and first, like, number 1 overall quarterbacks. He's done it time and time again.
Yeah, and on the flip side, Garrett Nussmeier for LSU. It's a guy that has waited in the wings, but has played in a lot of games. I mean, he's gotten some mop-up duty, and a lot of people forget SEC championship game 2 years ago. Jaden Daniels gets hurt. He came in and played, and I'll remind people, Georgia still had a lot of their starters in that game. They were up big, but Nussmeier was moving the offense. They were moving up and down the field and scoring points. Now, he's prone to throw an interception a time or two. That's what you get when you have a gunslinger like this. Yeah. But I think, I had somebody ask me on a radio show the other day, losing Jaden Daniels, so the offense is going to take a step back. Yeah, I mean, he's not as dynamic as a guy with his feet, but as just a pure passer, I think Nussmeier is going to be solid.
I think that's the biggest difference you're going to see in this year's offense, because the run game is going to be better. I mean, the run game is going to be physical and it's going to be better. You're like, we just kind of assume after what we've seen the past several years, dating back to 2019, really, with LSU, it's like they're going to air the ball out. Dude, side note, think about telling an LSU fan that prior to 2019. Yeah, they're going to just be throwing the ball 40 times a game or whatever, right? I think that the thing that's interesting about this is you got a very physical running back. So I can't think of his name right now because they have it.
Caleb Jackson.
They're 28.
Yeah,
he is going to hurt somebody at some point this season, just with how tough he runs. Like, he is a very physical back. You also are going to be behind the best offensive line maybe in all of college football. So if you have a situation like that, where like you're going to lean on that strength, and honestly, going into this, like, you don't want to take the ball out of Nussmeier's hands. You've seen what he's capable of doing, and I think the coaching staff especially is very, very confident in him. But until USC shows you they can play like big boy football, you run it behind Will Campbell and run it behind Emory Jones and see if they can stop it.
The other big game happening, this will be in the afternoon on it's a great triple header on ABC on Saturday, but 2:30 Central, 3:30 Eastern on ABC. It'll be number 19 Miami at not ranked Florida, but Billy Napier. It's an important game for him, man. I mean, they know the schedule, how brutal it is. I've had so many people just kind of say, oh, well, Florida's done and Napier's going to be fired and all this. And I keep looking at it saying, Florida's actually got a pretty good team. Like, Graham Mertz is a pretty good quarterback. I think Montel Johnson is a pretty good running back. Trey Wilson is a really good receiver. And then they got some pieces on defense. Like, I feel like we've hyped so much up about Florida and the tough schedule. We haven't taken a step back and go, wait, what if Florida's a pretty good team? Like, it's a brutal schedule, but this is one it feels like they have to win.
Well, and what's funny about this too, Gordy, is we've been talking about the schedule being the reason Napier's going to get fired since last year after one season. And listen, I think outside of the Arkansas game, Billy Napier didn't have a ton of moments where it was like, well, man, they only aren't any good because of what he has done, right? Like, Utah is a very tough out. You go on the road. It's the first time you've left the state that early since 1991. But you beat Tennessee at home. You were an underdog in that game. Like they did a lot of good things a season ago, and they should have made a bowl game. They just collapsed and fell apart in that Arkansas game. Going into this year, the entire like public media and casual fans and social media especially are just all in on the fact that he is not going to keep his job. And the thing is, if you talk to anybody close to like the program down there, there's some people that think he's closer to getting an extension than getting fired. And side note on that, man, like one thing that no one's talking about is that Florida has a potential to have their AD get fired, their president get fired. And if he's on the chopping block as well, you're not going to have the three biggest roles at a university all gone at the same time, right? It's just not going to happen. So I think the thing with Florida this year, Graham Mertz, in my opinion, is the most overlooked and underappreciated player in the country. Like he is, by all means, you look at the stats a season ago, he was in the top 5 in the SEC in almost every major category for quarterbacks. Led the conference in completion percentage and had the fewest interceptions out of any starter in the league. So like he's very good. The defense should be better, and they are going to be at home. I think if you're a Florida fan, the thing you want to see is you either want to see a win, or I hate to say it, man, you probably want to see a blowout loss, because at this point, Florida, I would compare it to how I used to like view like playing poker. Is like you don't want good cards, you want easy decisions. And what you don't want to have if you're a Florida fan is a 4 to 7 point loss and then continue this kicking the can down the road of, I don't know, like should he get fired over that? Or like, we're obviously not off to the right start, but like, is that his fault? Like you want a definitive outcome.
He is Chris Marler. When we return here on Locked On SEC, we will get into previewing the rest of the conference, and we'll just get a quick thought at him and some of those other games happening around.
I bet it won't be quick.
Still more to come here on Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day.
My bad.
And I want to remind you, today's episode is presented to you by our friends over at 5 Hour Energy. Grab a 5 Hour Energy shot to stay alert, to watch all your favorite games. Or if you stayed up late to see that intense overtime game, take a 5 Hour Energy shot in the morning so you can start your day. Zero sugar, a convenient portable size. It's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. The 5 Hour Energy website, they got flavors galore, like watermelon, tropical burst, grape, berry, whatever it is. Flavors for everyone. Try them all. And on their website, you can even have the option to build your own 12 or 24 pack with the flavors you want, delivered right to your door. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that is the number 5hourenergy.com, you'll get some 5 Hour Energy product today. You can use our promo code LOCKEDONCFB, receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th. On one order, cannot be used with other promotions. Code is not good on subscription orders. Go to 5hourenergy.com today and get started with 5 Hour Energy. All right, we dive back into it with our buddy Chris Marler. And Marler, as we get into the rest of the slate, just kind of want to get a kick around some of these games and get a quick thought. And by the way, full disclosure, as of this recording, we are not reacting to Arkansas Pine Bluff, or Murray State from last night, because they're happening. So we'll get into some of the other games. But let's start with Temple at number 16, Oklahoma. This is happening Friday night. I get it. Oklahoma is about a 42.5 point favorite. It's a lot of points. I don't know if Temple's any good, but that's a lot of points.
Yeah, I know nothing about Temple at all. So it probably should be. That line sounds about right. It's going to be at home. And I would also say that, I haven't done a ton of research on Temple, and I probably will continue not to do so. But I will say this. I think Oklahoma is going to be better than people think. That schedule's not doing them any favors, but I do think it's a very prideful program, obviously. I think the coach is going into year 3 with Venables. They do have a new OC. They got a new quarterback, but the expectation in Norman is very, very high. And I think that it's also, like I said, I brought the prideful program part. They know full well that Texas is the team along with them going into the SEC, but Texas, their arch rival, is the one getting all of the pub and all the predictions for them to make the playoff. And, you look at like Oklahoma's number, it's like 7.5 in Vegas, their preseason win total. That's just not where that program has been. That's a program that has won 10 plus games in 19 of the last 24 seasons. I think they come out and try to set the world on fire and have like a old school, I guess, like show to what this program is and what this team has been over the last several years, and kind of remind people like, hey, like, yeah, Texas was really good a year ago, but let's not forget that we beat them, and also like we've beaten them 10 out of the last 14 years.
It's going to be weird too, seeing Memorial Stadium in Norman, Oklahoma, with that SEC logo
Yeah.
on the field while they're pulling. It's going to be Oklahoma Temple with the SEC logos on the field. It's just going to be very strange to see for the first time. All right, we get into the games on Saturday, 11 a.m. Central, 12 Eastern on ESPN. One of the weirdest games I think I've ever seen. Virginia Tech is at Vanderbilt, or rather, they're playing Vanderbilt in Nashville at First Bank Stadium. But Vanderbilt, a 13-point underdog, according to FanDuel. And well, I don't know what the hell we're going to get. I know Virginia Tech's a pretty good squad, but like, what is Vandy this year? Like, Clark Lee's taking over play calling duties on defense. They bring in Diego Pavia from New Mexico State, of course, famous for beating Auburn a year ago. Jerry Kill and the offensive coaches are there with him. So Tim Beck. So like, I don't know what Vandy is, but I'll root for him.
Yeah, I think like Virginia Tech is like a lot of people besides Pat McAfee have them as a dark horse to win the ACC and maybe make a run to make the playoff. I mean, they returned 21 starters out of 22. Like there's a lot of leadership there. I think they're top 5 overall in terms of returning production in the country, and that's great. I don't know if there's a game that would be able to allow SEC fans to beat their chest more than this game. Like if Georgia loses to Clemson, it's like that would suck for the SEC and the outside perception. Florida should probably lose to Miami. They're already an underdog. And the other one, even though they're favored, like Notre Dame is 7th and A&M's 20th. But if Vanderbilt goes ahead and beats a team as a 2-point underdog, that's a massive win for the SEC. So I'm pulling for them. I'm not expecting them to win this game, but I do think you're going to see a much improved Vanderbilt team, especially because they finally have a quarterback that at the very least is 1-0 as an SEC against the SEC as a starter.
Also, shout out to them over the weekend. Clark Lee still would not announce a starter at quarterback. And then Sunday night, they quietly announced that Diego Pavia is a captain. I'm like, well, I guess he's starting if he's a freaking captain. Like,
right.
Was that so hard? Just
an ultimate team guy that transferred in.
Yeah, which also probably means like by midseason, he's benched. Nate Johnson's the starter the rest of the year because it's how Vandy's operated the last 2 years on offense. All right, 11:45 a.m. Central, 12:45 Eastern on the SEC Network. It is Chattanooga at Tennessee. And our first glimpse here for Nico Iamaleava to really start his Heisman campaign and start this run for Tennessee that I think could end up being a very good season for the Vols.
I have Tennessee as a dark horse to make the playoff. I think that they're going to be very good. I think they're a 10-win team this year. A lot of that is my faith in Nico at QB. And listen, very small sample size, but it's a kid that has all the physical tools. And the biggest thing for me, man, is not even the fact that he has all the physical tools. It's the fact that this is, in my opinion, and Tennessee fans, correct me if I'm wrong, because maybe every time I say it, I feel like I'm overlooking something because it's been a very, very proud program for a very long time. But I think this is the deepest receiving core that Tennessee has had since the late 90s. That's what it feels like to me. And like, it's guys from the portal. It's guys they have coming back like Squirrel White and Brew McCoy from our veteran leadership. It's, guys like from my alma mater in Lilburn, Georgia, Parkview, Mike Matthews, a former 5-star, like they're loaded. And the other part too is it's still a run first offense. They just have so many pieces on both sides of the ball that are the pieces that usually build championship type teams, or at least teams that compete for them.
Yeah, it's nobody's expecting Chattanooga to give them any but a bit of a fight, but this is a Pat statting game. Get Nico his confidence, first game at Neyland, and feel good about the Vols moving forward. How about at 2:30 Central over in Austin on ESPN? It is Colorado State at Texas. Another one. The two new SEC teams, heavy favorites. Texas as a 32-point favorite at Darrell K. Royal Stadium, and our first glimpse of a preseason top 4 team with Texas. Is Texas back is the question. This is the game they got to go out and let Quinn Ewers put up a ton of points and show everybody we're back.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be interesting. The biggest things that I'm looking forward to in this game is like Ewers not really like I want to see how quickly he's out of the game, how efficient he looks for one. Because he's got a whole new cast of receivers and people to throw the ball to. Like that's not talked nearly enough about, I feel like, this offseason. The other thing is the running backs. You lost your top 2 running backs in a matter of, like 48 hours in preseason camp. So what does that look like? You had to go get a kid from SMU like 9 days before the season. You had to go ahead and you got I think another freshman's going to step in as well. And they've got talent all over the roster. But the other thing is I want to see is that defensive line. You lost two of the best interior defensive linemen in the whole country, and you lost them both to the draft. So what does that look like replacing right in the middle when you have to be, your best up front and in the trenches coming in the SEC? I know it's not an SEC game, but I'm just interested to see what those kids look like that are replacing him.
You know what else I want to see? Arch Manning.
Oh,
Let's get him in the second half. Let's get
Yeah.
some Arch action happening. It was weird though. Earlier this week, Sark was asked, will we see Arch Manning in the first half? And Sark gave a cryptic answer. I'm like, why are you asking if he's going to play in the first half?
Yeah.
What is that question? Quarterback controversy? You're trying to stir one up, I guess, but
maybe
we'll see. All right, 3:15 Central, 4:15 Eastern on the SEC Network. It is a team you're familiar with. South Carolina is hosting Old Dominion. Don't know a ton about Old Dominion, but this is the game to start. What is Lenore Sellers? We're going to find out this weekend.
I'm excited, man. I think it's going to be a fun time ushering in a new era for South Carolina football. And I think that just looking at it on paper, man, this is the most talented team. You look at the 247 team talent composite rankings. It's the most talented team that's been at South Carolina and since 2015 when they started keeping the metric. I love the fact that the overhaul they've had on, with guys to the portal and the incoming freshman class. You had all but 3 kids in the freshman class that went through spring ball. And the other part of it too is Sean Elliott returning. I've talked about this a whole bunch because I'm just super high on Sean Elliott as a coach. He's only the tight ends coach, but dude left a head coaching job at Georgia State to come be an assistant coach at South Carolina, and he brings a toughness and a tenacity to this program and to the run game specifically that they haven't really seen since he left. And also the type of running that he does is not only physical, but it's the RPOs and stuff. So I want to see Lenore Sellers and I want to see Rocket Sanders. And then the other thing, man, that I keep saying this, it's not really even a bold prediction in my opinion, but South Carolina's defense has the possibility and the capability of being a top 5 defense in the SEC. They really do. They will be the strength of this team. And up front and on the edge, they really struggled the past couple of years, especially last year, getting to the quarterback. They only had 21 sacks last year in a whole season. Old Dominion gave up 63 total sacks last year. South Carolina has a chance to go in and get a quarter of what they did they were able to produce all last year. And so I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to see the guys that got in from the portal, the guys that have returning on the D-line and off the edge, and also former 5-star Dylan Stewart as well.
Over in Starkville, 5 p.m. Central, 6 Eastern, ESPN Plus. So you got to get the streaming going. It's Eastern Kentucky at Mississippi State. Mississippi State, a 25.5 point favorite. I just bring it up because we don't know what the hell Mississippi State is. Jeff Lebby, I think, is a good offensive mind. How is he going to be as a head coach? They bring in Blake Shapen at quarterback. But what the hell is Mississippi State? We're going to get to know them. I don't think we're going to know really much about them, though.
It feels like Lebby, it's a situation where I think people are going to be pulling for Mississippi State. If it wasn't for the Cowbells, I feel like Mississippi State would be America's team. I'll tell you what, if it wasn't for the Cowbells and Brandon Walker, I think Mississippi State would be America's team. They're a harmless program, and I'm not even saying that in a rude way, but it's no other program in the country is having to go through what they've gone through over the last 20 months as a program. And that is, after losing Mike Leach unexpectedly, and then you get Zach Arnett and you fire him before his first year's even over. Now he's at your arch rival. And you bring in Lebby, and it does feel like at the very least, Jeff Lebby is trying to build this thing from the ground up and do it in the right way. It doesn't feel like it's just a bunch of shiny, glittery, window dressing, for lack of better words. It feels like he's trying to build this thing the right way. I just don't think he has enough tools in place to do it. But this is a situation. You get Blake Shapen, former starter at Baylor. You should be able to put up some numbers in the first game, so at least they'll be excited about that.
A few more here, 6 p.m. Central over in Oxford. It'll be Furman at number 6 Ole Miss. Again, this is just a stat pattern game to get Jackson Dart a bunch of early yards and touchdowns, get him in the Heisman race, and get out with an easy win.
The Furman University Christian Knights, just a phenomenal, what do you call it? It's too late. I can't even think of it. Just an abbreviation or an acronym. That's what I'm looking for.
Paladins, right? That's what they are.
Yeah, sure. So they're the Paladins now. They used to be the Christian Knights, and then I think somebody caught on to the actual acronym. So, you're right. It's a stat padding game. It's not even Jackson Dart for me. I want to see everything else that they're going to have in place. I want to see what they got, everyone they brought in from the portal. The big thing I really want to see is how are they going to look on defense? Because they should look good against Furman. But in general, and like schematically and stylistically, how much different do you look from last year's team? Because Pete Golding is a guy who's been under a lot of scrutiny since he's been a DC in this league, mainly because he was at Alabama. But they've got the dudes in place, and they got the dudes in place at the right positions finally, in the interior and on the offensive line and defensive line. So that'll be very interesting to see what they look like.
6 p.m. Central on ESPN. Big ESPN is Western Kentucky and number 5 Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Bama sitting at about a 32-point favorite. And going to be interesting. TJ Finley is the starter at Western Kentucky now, so he gets to play against Alabama. Hey, last time he played Bama, he nearly beat him. Who was it? Tank Bigsby didn't go out of bounds, whatever that was.
Yeah, 2021.
But no, this will be an interesting one. But really, this should be the Jalen Milroe show. You want to see Kalen DeBoer and Nick Sheridan in this offense, and Milroe to be in that Heisman contention. I mean, look, we have questions about what the Bama defense is going to look like, right? But the offense should be awesome.
Here's the thing. The offense should be awesome, and I'm excited to see the offense. That being said, there's also a part of me that looks at this and you're like, man, Jalen Milroe should eat in this offense. The receivers should eat in this offense. I think Justice Haynes is going to have a monster year because you look at the last 2 seasons, you've had the running backs in the Kalen DeBoer offense when he was at Washington. They averaged around 1,100 plus yards and almost 11 or 12 touchdowns as well. So, the offense should be really, really good. And I think they'll probably average upwards of like 37 to 40 points a game. But the defense, it's not even the front seven is going to still be one of the best in the country, and especially in the SEC. The starters they have in place from like a talent standpoint will still also be one of the best and most talented in the entire country. But you lose 12 defensive backs to the portal or the NFL. You lose your best cornerback tandem they've had there, and I don't even know how long, with Terran Arnold and Kool-Aid. So you replace Caleb Downs, who might be the best safety in all of college football as a true sophomore. So there's a lot of question marks there, and most of the question marks are really, really young dudes. And they're going to go up against a Western Kentucky team that has, one of the best passing offenses in the country over the past couple of years. So it'll be interesting. I think that it'll be a fun game. They'll probably have a couple of, get exposed a little bit in some situations in the pass game. But, also TJ Finley's not a very mobile guy. So it'll be interesting to see who replaces Dallas Turner and Chris Baswell off the edge and get into the quarterback.
Yeah, Xavier Brown, Xavier Mincy, Red Morgan, all those freshman DBs, expect them to get their feet wet in these next couple of games. 2 more to go for you here. Just a quick thought, 6:45 Central on SEC Network. It's Southern Miss at Kentucky. Kind of interesting. You get the full Tom Hart, full Kublik crew calling this one, but a lot of new for Kentucky. Brock Vandegrift, new quarterback, new running back. I mean, it's a lot of new for Kentucky too.
Kentucky starting quarterbacks is the 3rd one they've gotten in the portal in the last 4 years, right? Their quarterbacks for the last 3 years have had a combined their starting quarterbacks have had a combined 35 interceptions in 3 seasons. It's the most in the SEC. So the bar is low in terms of improvement from that because ball security has been a massive issue for this team over the past couple seasons. The thing I'm most excited about isn't even what the offense will look like with Vandegrift. The thing I'm most excited about is the fact that they returned 6 of their front 7, right? And the only person they don't have returning is replaced by Jamon Dumas-Johnson from Georgia. Yep. So that front 7 should be nasty. You have right in the middle, you have the best defensive tackle in the entire country. So, some really good potential there, especially, like I said, in the front 7 and the quarterback situation. But I'm excited to see what this one looks like because, listen, Mark Stoops could have left. He could have left and gone to A&M maybe. I'm sure he's had some other offers at probably less demanding jobs and less demanding conferences, and he's chosen to stay.
Yeah, and one of the more tenured coaches in all of college football, particularly the SEC now. Last one, it is Alabama A&M at Auburn, and I get it. It's a game that doesn't even have a line, but man, all the talk this offseason about Auburn and Hugh Freeze is calling plays now. These freshman wide receivers, everyone can't wait to see them, but oh wait. It's still Peyton Thorne throwing the football. Peyton Thorne has got to look good this weekend for fans to have any confidence in Auburn this season.
Yeah, but I think the worst thing that can happen to Peyton Thorne's confidence is that he performs averagely, right? That's not a word, I'm pretty sure, but that he has an average performance, and then you have a guy like Walker White coming in, or you have the kid that's the backup, what's his name? Hank Brown coming in, and like those guys, because you should have success automatically with the guys you have around you now. And also with the team they're playing with Alabama A&M, the big thing for me is this. I put out my quarterback rankings to go into the season like today, right, for week 1. And I had Peyton Thorne at 15. And I fully expect that he will not stay at 15. But that's where he deserves to be, in my opinion, going into the season as a starting quarterback. There is not a position unit. Oh, nice. A position unit in the entire country that will be more improved this year than the Auburn receiving corps, because it's not just the fact that they got Cam Coleman. We've heard a ton about Cam Coleman, not enough about Perry Thompson, who's also a 5-star. You got the kid from Penn State who led them in receiving last year. Like, there's dudes everywhere. They didn't miss on any of these 4 freshmen they had coming in. And you know just as well as I do, like, Cam Coleman can go ahead and be the star. But, like, if you bring in 4 dudes like that, 2 5-stars, rarely does that not translate into success. And when you had, like, comparing it to where the receivers were a year ago, I don't see how they don't have a massive improvement. So Peyton Thorne should be better this year. Hopefully he will get started off on a good start this weekend.
All right, Marler, in closing, look, I'm excited, man. I mean, it's run through every one of these SEC games in week 1. In closing, it's one of those years where, look, SEC did not start off on a good foot last year coming out of the gates in week 1. Everybody was asking, what's wrong with the SEC? Are they overrated? I think SEC's got to have a good showing this weekend. Yeah,
I agree with that. I think they will. They could go 1-2. And I could see that happening in those big games on Saturday. I just don't see it happening. I think 2-1 is probably most realistic, but it should be. It's the thing I'm most excited about, man. Outside of the SEC stuff, is it feels like the first time in a very long time that they got it right for the fans. And it's so often you see the opening weekend where it's like, okay, cool, we got a big game at 12. There's nothing after it. Or there's like a big game, but it's like not until 7:30. And then the only other watchable games really the whole day are at like 7:15, 7:45. It's like you bunch them all at the same time. I'm excited that that's not the case this year. We have just a full day start to finish of great football.
All right, thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin. This has been Locked On SEC, Locked On Gamecocks crossover edition.